these recordings in that YouTube video library, so you can always go back and watch one of these again. If, you know, like before you're taking the test, if there's a few things you want to be reminded of, those YouTube videos, that library is going to be available to you. Tonight, we're going to concentrate on Word. And first, let me just share my screen. First of all, let me just talk about what Word is. So Word is a word processing system. And by default, when you create and save a Word document, it saves it with the file extension docx. docx. Okay, that's the default file extension. It's kind of the mark that Word. Conrad, would you mind muting just because we're getting feedback?
Oh,
thanks. That's the file extension that it marks your Word document. The reason why Word does that is so that when you are looking for a file and you see a Word file, it will have the little W to indicate that it is a Word file. And when you double click on it, you will be able to open Word along with it. So Microsoft puts these file extensions on their files so it knows which program to open in association with that file. We'll see that Word does docx, Excel does xlsx, PowerPoint does pptx. Okay, so those do mean something, and you would never want to delete those file extensions because it will lose the association it has with the program. Okay. All right, the first thing in Word I want to talk about are templates. So templates are pre-designed documents that you can use, and they have a slew of templates. So I'm in Word, and Conrad, can you see my screen? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. When I go to New, you will see that I have a search window here where I can search for templates. Before you ever start creating a brand new document, see if there's one in these templates that may be useful. So for example, Father's Day is coming up. So I'm going to type Father's Day in here. Shout out to all of my fathers. And here is some templates you could download and use to create a card in case you don't want to go to the store for Father's Day. Another one that I like, because many of us are looking for a job, are resumes. So there's a resume that I like. It's called the blue-gray resume. And it looks like this. When you find a template that you want, you can click on it and you will get this screen. And then you're going to hit create to open that template in Word. Now, when I'm in Word, I like to turn on my show hide button that I talked about last night. Why? So that I can see those non-printing characters and I can see how this document was set up. Now I see these special characters right here, and because I've worked with Word before, I know this was set up in a table. Okay, and we'll be learning about tables tomorrow. But this text in here is just placeholder text, and you can replace what they have with what you want to put in your resume. So I'm just putting some of my information into this template. If I wanted to change the picture, notice that within the template, it actually gives you some instructions on how to actually change the image. It says select the image and right click. Choose, where is it? Hold on, what did it say? Select fill from the shortcut menu. Where's fill? Oh, here it is up at the top, fill with a picture. I can pull a picture from my computer. I don't have a picture of myself, but I have a picture of Fair and Field at Boulder. And so I have replaced that picture with one of my own pictures. And you can go in and fill in all of these placeholders. Notice though that formatting has been set up for you. Colors have been selected for you. They put in borders. They've selected fonts and font sizes for you. So it can save you a lot of initial work by using one of these templates. Once you have the template filled out with your own information, then you would want to go and do a save as. The difference between save and save as, big question, okay? So let's say I pulled up a document on my computer called Chris. If I do a save, it's going to overwrite what I did and save my new content. My old content is no longer available. If I do a save as, I will have two different versions of that file. I will have the original, and then I'll do a save as with a new file name, and I'll have the new file. So when you're saving files, kind of think about, am I doing a save? Do I want to overwrite, or do I want two separate versions? Depending on what you're doing, you may actually want two separate versions. I'm going to put in my file name here. Notice it tells me it's saving it as a docx file, meaning it's a default Word file. And when I click save, that information has been saved. I'm not saving the template. And now I'm going to open up the Word file that we looked at last night. Again, you guys have this available. So if you want to play around in a file, you can. The first thing I want to talk about is the Layout tab. The Layout tab is where you go in Word to change things like the margin, the orientation, like portrait or landscape, the size of the paper that you're using. Most of the time we're using letter size paper, but if you work in a legal field, you might be using that larger paper. And then we will talk about columns later. But first, let's talk about margins. So margins are this white space at the top, at the left. Also, you'll notice it is over at the right and at the bottom. We don't type text from the corner to the corner of the page. Our eyes wouldn't be able to track the text. So we use margins to allow our eyes to be able to track that text. So if I need to change the margins, I would click that drop down button after margins, and you'll notice there's some presets margins. So if I change to wide margins, notice that the white space got a lot bigger all around my text. If I change to narrow margins, the white space got a lot smaller around my text. And I also can go to custom margins. Custom margins means I get to say what the margins are going to be. So right now the top margin is set at a 1/2 inch. I could type 0.75. Usually you want your top and bottom margins to match and your left and right margins to match. They don't all four have to be the same, but the two at the top and bottom and the two at the left and right should be about the same. Okay, and when I click OK, it will display those margins. All right, I'm going to change the orientation of the paper from portrait to landscape. And you'll see when it's landscape, I can fit more across the width of my piece of paper. And the size button lets you select what size paper. Obviously, the default is 8.5 by 11. And 99% of the time, you will use that unless you're in the legal field where they use those larger pieces of paper for writing contracts. All right, now up at the top, you will see a ruler. This ruler can be turned on and off. And we do that through the View tab. So if I click on the View tab, you'll notice in this Show group, there is a check mark by the ruler. Watch what happens when I turn it off. The rulers go away. When I turn it on, the rulers display. There's a ruler along the top, and there's a ruler along the left edge. Let me explain what that ruler does. The gray area here, that shaded area, indicates the margin width, okay? The white area indicates the amount of space you have to type on that document. Same thing along the edge. This is the margin. This is the area where text can be typed. Now you can also set tabs using this ruler, and tabs cause people a lot of issues. So let me show you some things about tabs to make your life easier. I'm going to go down to the bottom of this document using my control home or control function home, depending on if you have a laptop or not. And I want to create something that shows me how much money I owe to a few people. And I want it to be in tabs. If I just hit the tab key right now, you'll notice it jumps a 1/2 inch. So there are preset tabs every 1/2 inch. Okay, I'm going to backspace those out. Now, if I want to set a tab, I can use this ruler. So over here, you will see it looks like a small little L. That indicates that this is the tab indicator, and it indicates a left tab. Remember L for left tab. So let's say that I wanted a left tab at the 3-inch mark. So on my ruler, I will click 3-inch, and you'll see how it put a little L there. Now when I hit tab, you'll notice instead of jumping a 1/2 inch, it jumped 3 inches because I set that tab up and then I use the tab key. Okay. Now there are different types of tabs. The left tab aligns everything at the left. And there's a bunch more, but I'm just going to talk about the left and the right. The right tab looks like a backwards L. You'll notice how I clicked on that a few times until it displayed. And I'm going to set a right tab at the 6-inch mark. Okay, so I have a left tab and a right tab. So at the 3-inch mark, I'm going to type the word name. I'm going to press tab, and then I'm going to say amount owed. Okay. Now watch how these tabs act. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to hit tab. I owe Bob $25. I owe Cole $1,000. Okay. Who can tell me the difference between how the left tab acted and the right tab acted?
One aligned, the other one right aligned.
Okay, so the left tab, do you see how everything is lined up right on the 3-inch mark? So when I type, text is moving to the right because it's lined up at the left. Whereas the right tab, the text is lined up at the 6 and it goes backwards from the 6. So one goes forward, one goes backwards. A lot of times we like to use right tabs when we're aligning numbers on the decimal place, okay? Because we don't like to see numbers that are not aligned by their place value. Now, this is my tab data, and I'm going to select those 3 paragraphs that have my tab data in it. And let's say that I wanted, whoops, sorry. Let's say that I wanted to move that right tab. First, I select the data that I want to change the tab. Then I go up to the ruler and I take that little tab mark and I can drag that tab wherever I want on the ruler. If I want to delete a tab, I can simply take the tab and just drag it off the ruler. And now you see this data is not aligned as nicely as it was before. It's much more difficult to read. So the ruler, first, how to display it, the tab indicator, and then moving those tabs to the ruler. And there I talked about left tabs and right tabs. Now there is another location where you can manipulate tabs. So with that same information selected, I'm going to go to my Home tab and I'm going to go to the Paragraph Group dialog box launcher, and I'm double clicking, and down on the bottom of this dialog box, you'll see a button that says Tabs. And right now it's telling me that I have a tab set at 3 inches, which is a left tab and has no leaders. If I wanted to set a tab at the 5.5-inch mark that was a right tab, I would click Set, click OK, and you see how it put that tab on the ruler. So 2 different ways of setting tabs. I I want to pause for a moment to see if anyone has questions so far about tabs, templates, or the ruler. All right, no questions? I will move on to our next topic, which is text alignment. How is text aligned in your document? By default, in the Home tab, if you look in the paragraph group, you will see these alignment buttons. There are 4 of them. Align left, center, align right, and justify. Okay, so let me just come down here and type my name. By default, my name is aligned at the left margin. And remember, we controlled margins on the layout tab. If I want to change the alignment of that paragraph, remember from last night, we can quickly select a paragraph by triple clicking. 1, 2, 3. It selects the paragraph. I'm going to come up and choose my center alignment. You see how now the text is centered according to the margins that were set, or right aligned, meaning it moved over to the right. Now, let's say that after Chris Bonzak, you see how it's still on right alignment. I can bring it back to left alignment so that I can start typing my document. So you can change by paragraph how your text is aligned. Left, center, right. The only one I didn't show you is justify. And let me show you what that does. It's not used very frequently. The most places I've seen it used are for legal documents. And once you see it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. So I'm going to select this paragraph by triple clicking. And I'm going to go up to my alignment button and hit justify. When I hit justify, notice that my left margin and my right margin are exactly even. Okay, let me just remind you, this is what it looked like before. On the right over here, we have what's called a jagged margin versus a justified margin. When we choose justify, the software adds or reduces spaces between words so that everything is evenly spaced on the page. Justify is hard to read. Most people like to read documents that have a jagged margin. All right, how many of you have heard of headers and footers?
Yes.
I use them in papers and stuff like that.
Yes, we use them in papers, okay? So headers are something that appear at the top of every page, or you can say, I want a different first page for a header, and the rest of the pages, like if you do MLA style papers, that's what I'm going to kind of demonstrate how you do the headers and footers for MLA. And footers are information that appear at the bottom of every page. Some footers may include page numbers. Okay, so let me demonstrate how to add headers and footers to your document. So in this document, I am going to add a header. Headers and footers are found on the Insert tab. And they're in this header and footer group. You'll notice all three things that I've talked about. When I click on the drop down next to header, notice I get some pre-built headers or pre-designed headers, or I get some options down here. You can look at, and there's a bunch of these headers. Some are very stylish. Generally, if I'm just creating my own header, I just select the Edit Header button. When you hit the Edit Header button, you will notice that your document kind of gets grayed out over here, and your attention is brought up to the top of your document, and you get a new tab that displays in your ribbon called the Design tab. And all of these options can be used in a header, okay? So those of you who've done MLA papers before, the header is supposed to be your last name and then followed by the page number, okay? And the last name is supposed to be at the right side of your document. So my last name is Bonzak. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the alignment to right align. Okay, so I can see my last name. And when you get out of the header, you can either go to the Design tab and close the header or footer. That's one way to get out of the header or footer. The other way is to simply double click anywhere in your document. Okay, now let's look at our document. Notice in the status bar, our document has 3 pages. And if I scroll this document, there's my last name on the top of page 2, and there's my last name on the top of page 3. Okay. Now let's go in and add the page number for this in the header as well. And usually the first page, we don't put the header on in MLA style. So how do I get back to the header? Again, there's 2 different ways. One way is to go back to the Insert tab and click Edit Header. That will refocus your document so that you're looking in that header area. And after my last name, I'm going to put the page number. So I click the space bar, and over in my ribbon, you see the page number button. I'm going to click that. It asks me where I want to put the page number. I'm going to say in the current position, and then I can pick the style of my page number. And I'm just using the plain number 1. So I'm going to click that. You see it put page number 1. Now, I don't want the first page to have a header, but I want all the other pages to have this header. So in this options group right here, do you see this different first page option? If I click that, you'll notice that my header on page 1 went away. And if I scroll, there it is for page 2, and there it is for page 3. Okay, so headers. Now let's go to the footer. Again, I'm going to close out of this just to remind you. And I'm going to go and insert a footer, and I want to show you some fun things you can do in your footer. This is not MLA style, but just some other things to think about. So when I go to the footer, okay, again, you have some presets in there, or you can select edit footer. When you hit edit footer, you'll notice that you are focused now on the bottom of your document. And because we had said different first page, this is the first page footer. So if you don't want anything on the first page, then go ahead and scroll down to the second page to put your footer. Okay, depending on what you want on the first and subsequent pages. Now, two things that I like in footers is the date and time. Okay, so there's a button here called date and time. When I click it, I get a dialog box that opens up and I can pick different date formats. Okay, so I'm picking one that has the time as well. Notice this update automatically. If that is checked, every time I open this document, it will update the footer to the exact date and time. If this is unchecked, it will not update, okay? So that's what that update automatically is. There is my footer. I'm going to go down another line, and another thing that I like in the footer is over in this insert group, you'll see a button called document information. If I clicked on that, I can select file path. And this is really helpful when you work at a company and you share documents among each other. And you, like, I need to know where Conrad, he created a document, he's out sick. I need to edit his document, but I see in the footer, it had where that is stored. So I can easily go find that file on my shared network drive. Okay, so that was under document information. And you probably saw there were other ones in there as well, like who created the document. We looked at properties yesterday. All right, I'm going to close out of header and footer. And I will pause a minute just to see if anyone has questions or comments. You guys are easy. Or it's just late at night. Okay. The next topic is line spacing. So line spacing can be controlled for the whole document, one paragraph of the document, or several paragraphs of the document. First, let's select the whole document by using one of those shortcuts that we learned last night, Control A. Okay, remember that selects everything in your document. On the Home tab, on the Home tab in the paragraph group, there is a button called Line and Paragraph Spacing. If I click the little drop down to the right of that, I can see the line spacing that is currently selected. And the default is 1.15, which is weird. It's not single spacing and it's not double spacing. It's in between the two. Okay, so let's say I wanted to make this a double spaced document. Do you see how the text stretched out and I have a double spaced document? Now let's look at this title. You'll notice there's extra space above the title and there's extra space below the title. Sometimes, especially when you're trying to fit a document like a resume all on one page and you're really trying to squeeze things in, you can go to the dialog box launcher and whoops, let me just select that one paragraph. I just wanted that one paragraph selected. Just this first paragraph. I go to the dialog box launcher and you can see right here, this is important. It's telling me there are 36 points of space before that paragraph and 10 points of space after. And then you have these little spinner buttons and I can reduce or increase the space before or after. And watch when I click OK. Did you see how that got closer together? Same thing for, let's do this paragraph. Triple click, go to the dialog box launcher. It says it's using double space, and I'm going to change this to 0 points before, 0 points after. Click OK, and you should see how that text got closer. So those are ways of manipulating the real estate on your page, changing the line spacing and changing the space before and after a paragraph. And this is when, you know, again, that show hide button, I turn it on and off all of the time when I'm doing formatting on my document, just so I can see where is a paragraph, where is a tab, where is a table, okay? The next thing I'm going to talk about are styles. So on the Home tab, we have font options, and the only ones I want to talk about here that might be new to you, because everyone knows what bold and italicize are, but let me just, I'm selected on this paragraph. There's some new buttons if you haven't used Word lately that I use quite frequently. So this button is called the increase font size. So instead of typing in my font size, I can repeatedly click this, and do you see how it's increasing my font? Or the other one is decrease the font size. I use those a lot instead of coming here and doing the drop down. I just like those two buttons better. The other one that I use is this button. And in this button, I can change between all uppercase, all lowercase, or sentence case, or capital. I mean, the first letter of each word is capitalized. So some of those I use as well. The other one that I use a lot is the text color, okay? So this button, the A with the little red under it, if I were to click that right now, the last color I used was red. So if I click that, that would change to red. If I wanted a different color, I would select to the right and choose the color that I wanted to use for my text. I don't know if you guys can see that purple very well. Okay. So those are some of the buttons that I use to change the look of my text. The other buttons I use are these style buttons. So in this document, we have used different styles for example for the headings. Okay, see how they have certain fonts, certain colors, and certain background colors. So if I were to select this text and look up in my styles, okay, it's telling me, let me go to this one. Sorry. It's telling me that this is a heading 1 style. If I were to change it to a heading 2, do you see how the text changed? A heading 3, the text changed. These are styles that are built in to this particular document. The styles, like if I brought up the resume template, it would have different styles up there. If you brought up the Father's Day card, it would have different styles because they're specific to the document that you are using. Okay. Let's say that although I like this heading 2, I want to change something about that style, and I want it to change for every place in my document where I have put in a heading 2 style. I can modify one of these styles by right-clicking on it and going to the Modify button. Okay, when I go there, I get a dialog box. It's not a pretty dialog box, but I can change the font. I'm going to choose something really funky just so you can really see what's going on. I'm changing the size to something very large. And I could even change the color. Let's use green, okay? And I'm gonna click OK, and I'm gonna click OK. So I've modified that style. And now any place within this document where I've used that heading 2 style, it automatically updated my whole document. So styles are very powerful, especially if you're working on something for a company like a newsletter and you want to be consistent from one newsletter to another, or a corporate report and you have different headings and you want to make sure they're all set up the same. All right, let me show you something else. It's called the Format Painter. Have any of you used Format Painter before?
No, I don't think so.
All right, so let me just type summer 2020, okay? And I'm going to put a bunch of formatting on this. So I'm going to change it to bold. I'm going to change my font. I kind of like this chiller font, and I'm going to up the size, and I'm going to change the color. Okay, so I've made a bunch of formatting changes to that text. In fact, I've made so many that I can't remember what I did, but I want to copy that formatting from this text to my name that's over here. Okay, so there's something called the Format Painter. It is it's on the Home tab in the clipboard group that does that. It copies the formatting from one location to another location. So I have selected the text that has the formatting that I want. I click the Format Painter one time, and you'll notice that my cursor has a little paintbrush attached to it, and I can paint that formatting across other text. And you see how it copied everything, including the alignment. So it is a very quick and easy way. You get something set up the way you want, and you want to copy that formatting to other locations in your document. The Format Painter will help you. All right, I want to pause and just see where everyone is tonight. And so as I call your name, if you could just tell me what was the most beneficial thing that I presented tonight. And we'll start with Conrad.
The paragraph where you selected to mark all your paragraphs and your line spacing.
Okay, line spacing and the paragraph dialog box launcher.
Yes.
Okay, great. How about Michael?
I would say there's one way to get to everything versus using shortcuts and right clicking.
Okay, what are some of the shortcuts, Michael, that you like?
I like I guess the indentation one versus having to do the whole part of it.
You mean like when I showed you the ruler and the
Yes,
tabs?
the 3 and the 6.
Yes, great. All right, is Misty on the line? Okay, how about Vincent? Something, what did you like?
For me, two things. Love the tabs. Learned some new stuff about tabs, how to set them up like that. That was pretty cool. And then the format paint seems like a really cool thing. Instead of having to do all that work over again, you just paint it over. So that was cool.
Right, and let me tell you something else about the Format Painter, Vince. If you click the Format Painter once, you can paint it one time. If you double click the Format Painter, you can paint it multiple times to multiple paragraphs. And the best way is for you to just try it. Type something, format it. Try the difference between single clicking the Format Painter and double clicking the Format Painter. I used to call myself, tips from the crabby office lady. I have been working in computers since before Word was even created. I worked on WordPerfect and WordStar. So throughout the years, I, try to think of tips that may not be in a book that you may have never heard of before, just to, give you something to think about and things to learn. Norma, something that you liked tonight.
I think the most interesting one was pretty much the tabs, how you
The
can
tabs.
put like the name on one side and like you put the example the amount on the other side. That
Yeah.
looks pretty useful.
And a lot of people get frustrated when they're working with tabs. And tomorrow night, I'm going to show you something called tables. You're going to love tables. If you use tables, you rarely have to even use tabs. And I think you're really going to like tables. If you've never done one before, they're pretty cool. All right, last one up, Latanya.
For me, it was the styles and being able to modify them for the headings and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yes, and the thing that's nice about those is, you bring up a template, you use the template, and then you say, I really like this style, but I want to tweak this one or two little things, and it will change everything in your document that uses that style. So I think that's a really important thing. All right, we have a few minutes left, so I'm just going to show you one other cool thing since we have the time, and it's called word art. This is not on the test, but it's still fun. So I am going to go to the Insert tab, and over in the text group, you will see a button that says Insert Word Art. It looks like a diagonal A, okay? When I click this, I get some pre-built word arts. So I'm going to pick this purple one. And it's just kind of, it makes text into pictures. So there is my word art. Notice that with my word art, I got a new tab called Format with all of these options I can do to this text. I can spin this text, okay? I can change the fill color of this text or this box, excuse me, okay? I can change the outline color. I can change the font color. I can change the outline of the text. I can even change, watch this, how that text look. That is called word art, especially if you're doing something creative. Word art is a lot of fun, and it's considered not text, but it acts more as a picture in your document, and you get a whole lot of new options that you can play with when you look at word art. Okay, so there's always stuff to learn, and I will see you tomorrow night, same time, same place. All right. See you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.